Battlefront 2's online community bashed the reveal of the Han Solo season in two pieces. Combined with a damaging leak about the potential state of affairs regarding the ongoing development of the game, players were truly furious. Only 2 new skins, 1 new map, and Starfighter Assault for Arcade. That is it. So large was this backlash that content creators almost restarted the whole EA hate train and seemed to convince swaths of players that the game had definitely been abandoned. At least that's how the gaming media like to portray it. Well, the thing is, I was also very angry when I saw the update, well, the initial news of it at least. But I held out, I waited to actually play the damn thing before passing judgment, and I'm quite glad that I did, because Han Solo Season Part 1 does a whole lot of things right. It just doesn't have anything to do with content. In fact, it is probably the best quality of life update I have ever seen dropped in a video game in recent memory. I am Ascendance from 4FS Gaming, and today we are going to look at why this update is so positive for the future of Battlefront 2. We are also going to discuss that now infamous development leak and scrutinise its legitimacy. And then, to prove I am not an EA shill, I will explain how despite being very good, this update certainly doesn't fix everything, and there are still some very big and glaring problems with the way that the devs are developing and communicating new content. So I'm not really going to talk about the content that is in this Season 2 Part 1. At this point, there is basically nothing worth talking about. Nothing of significance was really added. Now, this fact has been well established by everyone who was angry about the Season 2 announcement, and yes, this lack of content is still very disappointing. But this whole narrative that the devs have been wasting their time, I don't think holds as much water as you think. They haven't exactly been working on nothing. They have been making other important improvements to the game. The first thing that you'll notice when opening up the game is the menus and the character screens. Now, these are beautiful. They have gone above and beyond in this respect, and you can see the care and attention applied to doing this process properly. The removal of the hologram effect is significantly better than any similar community mod that I've ever seen, and that's how it should be. You can also now spend skill points while in the midst of a game without leaving the lobby, and a whole suite of new challenges have been added, and although they're quite simple, they do give you more things to do. There are a whole other suite of minor additions like the XP bar now being displayed under your health bar, which add a bit more richness to the entire experience. Now, none of this is really that impressive, and that's not what makes me happy to have the Han Solo season. You may have noticed that for such minor changes and little content, this update was rather large, over 5 GB. This is because they reformatted much of the game's data, and significantly reduced loading times in the game across all game modes and platforms. They seriously halved the time it takes to load from a game to the menu and back again, and this change alone is simply amazing. Previously, this was one of my biggest problems with Battlefront 2, and I know that many people, including myself, prefer this over a new hero or something to be added in with this update. Changes like this position the game to be ready to receive new content. It's kind of like Operation Health for R6 Siege, but with a few less bugs. Rather than giving us straight up content, DICE seem to be improving the core game first, hopefully in preparation for some content drops. But nothing's been announced because they don't like to communicate well with their community. And herein lies the problem. This has been happening for 3 major updates now. The progression update, the cosmetic Night on Endor update, and now the Han Solo Season Part 1 are much more focused on improving the game rather than adding to the game. And that is frustrating for much of the community. Speaking of the community being frustrated, let's just have a little look at that for a moment. There seems to be a pattern of vast overreactions whenever anything in this game is announced. This happened when EA pulled the now infamous pay-to-win stunt at launch. People were saying that it takes over $100 to purchase Darth Vader or Luke and 40 hours to earn them normally, despite the fact that the purchasable currency could not even be spent to get heroes. Aside from their star cards, heroes didn't have anything to do with the pay-to-win aspect of the game when it actually came to just unlocking them. Of course, the gaming media didn't seem to care about these small facts. Then everyone got really pissed off at the Night on Endor update. They thought it was a bit of a joke that we were getting playable Ewoks before playable Anakin Skywalker, but in the end it was really well received. People had a lot of fun with it. And this has been repeated to an even more extreme degree with this latest Han Solo season update. There was so much hate, but now that people have played it, there's a lot of praise. Now don't get me wrong, I'm not really trying to criticize the community here. What I'm trying to point out is that ultimately it's a communication problem on behalf of the developers. Their updates are pretty good, well thought out, and they do make important improvements to the core gameplay experience. However, those UI improvements don't sound as interesting as, say, 2 new heroes in an update reveal post, despite the fact that they are probably ultimately more important. What we really do need is a roadmap, so that we know what kind of actual content to expect in the future. I honestly believe that if a roadmap was present, even a vague one, people would be much more amenable to these kind of quality of life improvement announcements. DICE, it is time for a roadmap. It is time for new content. Face it, you've fixed the game. It's fun. The microtransactions are now ethical, I suppose. The progression system is rewarding. The UI is pretty good, and the loading times are now excellent. The game is solid. It's pretty much fixed. Well, mostly. Now is the time to start filling it out with all those new maps, heroes, and vehicles that were promised as a live service prior to release. Oh, and weapons. We are pretty desperate for a few new weapons over here as well. Now, of course, there was that apparent leak that came out and predicted half of the content that would be announced for Season 2. Now, this does cast a bit of a shadow over the future of the game, as it states in no uncertain terms that EA is basically abandoning the project, and it's running on a skeleton crew. Now, this leak does have a little bit of credence. It predicted many things about this update correctly, however it also says that Leia is getting her metal bikini outfit and the ability to use a chain like Roadhog from Overwatch. Let that sink in. I mean, come on, it's absolutely ridiculous. It also looks like it's written by a 14-year-old by the way the sentences are put together, and it says a lot of half-obvious information that might not be true, but it really sounds true, like EA are pissed that we broke their exploitative microtransaction model and have stripped support from the game in response. It's not necessarily true, but it's an obvious conclusion that many people would come to. So the leak is questionable at best, especially now that we can see where the development time has actually been going rather than new content, and that is to making improvements to the core aspect of the game. New heroes and weapons are probably far easier to add than halving the loading times and redoing menus and character models, so there is your development manpower, people. It's just not in the content where you want it to be, well, at least not yet. Regardless, we as a community are running out of patience and are clearly very frustrated by the stark lack of communication. We need new stuff. Maybe they are waiting for the movie release to avoid spoilers, but whatever the reason is, we need to be told. The policy of silence is hurting this game. It's hurting the player base, and ultimately this leads to it hurting the pockets of EA and DICE, and I think that's something that they care about if nothing else. So just tell us that the game has a future, give us a roadmap, and I guarantee you that you will make more money from those skins. Thank you for watching, guys. If you ever want to chat or play games with the 4FS crew, join our community on our Discord server, which should be linked in the description below. And hopefully those shorter load times mean there will be less angry posts on the subreddit. Peace out, fellas.